I was at a conference in Paris, TESOL France, and I gave a talk about motivation. And motivating students in the classroom, especially when students don't have their internal drive, the internal drive necessary to push them to meet really long-term difficult goals. And my strategies involved work in the classroom. And I got a very good question from an audience member that I don't quite have an answer to yet, and that right now I'm experimenting with. I'm looking for solutions for this answer. And he asked me, what is a way to motivate students to do work outside of the classroom? So all of the strategies I covered were about making it clear that students are moving in a certain direction. They understand where they are, where they're going. You provide value and little victories in your activities in the lesson. You motivate students to work inside the lessons, but what about outside of the lessons? Now, my immediate thought is one thing is authority. The teacher's authority. Now, authority in this meaning is the trust that others have in you to deliver results consistently. So if your students believe that you will deliver results, they're much more likely to listen to what you have to say. Now, that's just any sort of leadership position. Now, what I'm finding interesting here is, I like to read about leadership, I like to read about organizations within companies, influence, as well as teaching and parenting. Because I find that there's a lot of overlap in these areas. And this is where I'm going. This is where I'm going with this sort of question, and this is how I'm experimenting with it in my school. And I want to put this out there in case you want to try it in your school. So, this is Baumrind, Dr. Baumrind. I can't remember her first name, but she talks about the 4 different styles of parenting. And the most effective of those styles is authoritative parenting. Sounds just like authority. So we have authoritative parenting is when a parent has high demandingness and high responsiveness. So the parent sets high expectations, makes those expectations clear, and is responsive to the kid. It's going to be there. If it's discipline, but it's non-judgmental discipline. And the idea is that the kids rise to meet expectations. The kids will rise to meet expectations. Now, right now, I'm reading this book called Attack of the Teenage Brain by, I think his name is John Medina. And he is talking about how to raise kids and how to teach kids, particularly teenagers in this case. Now, he's coming at it from a neuroscientist perspective, and I'm not going to pretend to understand neuroscience. What I want to do is just take some implications from this sort of work and these ideas and see what we can do with it in the classroom to really establish an atmosphere that encourages work not only inside the classroom, which right now I love what we're doing inside the classroom. It works. It really works. But also to motivate students to work outside of the classroom. So here's the idea. Now we have these triangle of relationships, and this comes from a lot of some leadership books that I've read. If you want a reading list, I don't really remember the books because I have a Kindle. I'd remember much better if I had the actual books themselves, but I just kind of flip between books. But if you're interested, let me know and I can share those too. So we have these relationships. We have these parties are involved. We got parent, school, teacher, student. Now, here's how it works. If this is our first triangle, we have the parent and the student. Let's say the parent isn't an authoritative parent. It's a parent who's, it's okay, it's not that big a deal. The student isn't going to work as well in the classroom. That makes this relationship more difficult. If the parent has respect for the teacher, then the kid is going to work harder. It depends on the values. It results, the atmosphere at home actually has more of an effect on results in school than the atmosphere at the school does. So parents play a huge role, but we can't go into every single home and tell parents how to parent and teach them about authoritative parenting. That's condescending and it's not our place. I mean, maybe we can. Maybe in your culture it's okay. But I can't necessarily do that in my position. Because if a parent is uninterested, then the kid's going to be uninterested. Or if you're working with a teenager and the parent has conflict with the teen, that might be a way of getting back at the parent to do poorly in school. So there are all these complex relationships right there, and the fact is we can't rely on this relationship to support our relationship, especially when we have a student who is, for example, coming late. We had a student who was coming 15, 20 minutes late consistently. We called the parent several times. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago. And the parent just said, well, what do you want us to do about it? It's like, well, we have no support on that front. Therefore, we have to rely on this relationship, and establish an authoritative relationship full of authority, which is, again, the trust that others have in your ability to deliver results, to strengthen the teacher-student relationship. Now, what I want to do in the school is establish expectations so that the students work to meet those expectations. So, not only in this relationship, we're going to strengthen that, but also right here. So we're going to make expectations clear in the atmosphere of the school and in everything we do within the classroom. The teacher plays a huge role in that, but we can also support from the administrative side in school. So we have all these posters that we designed, and they're all over. So you can kind of see one in the corner there. It's someone at the top of a mountain, and it says, "We expect you to accomplish big goals." So it's very explicit expectations and the imagery as well. Now, we're probably going to do another round of posters which emphasize the difficulty of the process. So rather than being on top of the mountain, someone's going to be climbing the mountain and working towards that goal, to emphasize the grit and the difficulties that are required to grow. So what we're doing essentially is working to establish an atmosphere of high expectations for our students, and to do that in a way where if the parents are supportive, then great, but where we don't have to rely on parents. So we have the school tells the student about expectations. It's clear. The teacher talks to the students about expectations, makes it clear in every single lesson, so that hopefully that motivates the student outside of the class as well. That's the goal, and that's the experiment we're working on right now. And if you're interested, I would be happy to tell you more, because I'm excited about it. And that's why I like the freedom of having my own school, because I can play with things like that. We see a problem and we can make changes and adapt very quickly. And I'll let you know how that experiment goes, because there's a great question from that audience. I remember his name. I do not have his contact information, sadly. I'm interested to know how this goes, and I'm excited to see how it goes.